okay to question God. It's okay to wrestle with God. It's okay if you have doubts. It's okay if you're confused and you bring those things to God. God is not afraid of your questions. In fact, because you bring those questions to God, He can and will give you understanding and revelation many times. That's what we've seen throughout the prophetic writing of Habakkuk. God answered Habakkuk's question. And that's the only reason we even have that text. It's a conversation between him and God. What conversations with God are you missing because you're afraid or uncertain about asking, being vulnerable with God mentally and emotionally, and bringing your raw self to him and letting him deal with you where you are, not where you're pretending to be. So we've dealt with Habakkuk 1 and 2. Now we're going to the final chapter today, 3. So let's do a very brief review. The book opens up with Habakkuk giving complaint about the injustice and wickedness that he sees in his own nation, and uncertain about the future and wondering a very strong question: why do you look idly at wrong? Why do you make me see iniquity, and why do you look idly and at wrong? In other words, God, you're seeing evil and you're not doing anything about it. God's response essentially was, hey, yeah, I see the wickedness of Israel, your nation, and my response is, I'm going to bring judgment and destruction against them. I'm going to allow another nation to rise into power, and they are going to dominate this other nation as a consequence for them not following me, not listening to me. And Habakkuk was still quite stunned and confused. Says, to God, you who are of pure eyes than to see evil and cannot look at wrong, why do you idly look at traitors and remain silent when the wicked swallows up the man more righteous than he? So he's still seeing this as an unjust balance. But as we see in Habakkuk and throughout the prophets, particularly with nations, that there is this kind of balance of power, this cycle where God allows nations to rise up. Those nations leave God, his ways, and his commandments, so he allows another nation to take their place as the chief or the crown to rule and reign over all of them. So God's response to Habakkuk was essentially, there's going to be a new chief in town. But Habakkuk is still hurt because, it's like, man, Babylon's going to be running the show and they're wicked, right? So he says, hey, I'm going to see what the Lord has to say more to me, because I'm still challenged by this, but I'm going to wait and see what he says. He gives him this. We use it out of context completely, but this is the scripture. Oh, I haven't had the screen on at all. He gives him Habakkuk to write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it. For this vision awaits an appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. In other words, make sure that this is in a place where people can see it clearly. It's not coming happening today or tomorrow. It's going. If it seems slow, wait for it. But this word is going to come to pass. So let people see this word in a clear way. And what is the word? Judgment and destruction concerning Babylon. So the oppressor will be oppressed. Why? In chapter 2, we discussed the 5 woes of Babylon. Because essentially they're using God's power that they were given. The king is using that power. It doesn't acknowledge God. He feels like it's his power, his strength, his ability that allowed him to be at this place as the chief of the nations. But it was really God and his will, and God doing his bidding through the king. Also because of the oppression of the poor, the greed, and all this wickedness. So check out chapter 2 and also check out the video. So in chapter 3, after the woes, we go into Habakkuk's final prayer. Habakkuk 3, a prayer of the prophet prayer of Habakkuk the prophet according to Shiganoth. So here, this is only used in one other place, Psalm 7. It likely refers to highly expressive music, that this should be accompanied to highly expressive and exhaustive music. So let's go deeper into it. O Lord, I have heard the report of you and your work. O Lord, do I fear. In the midst of years, revive it. In the midst of years, make it known. In wrath, remember mercy. That's actually something I pray very often, that God would be merciful upon us all, despite where we are in life. God came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran. Selah. His splendor covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise. His brightness was like the light. Rays flashed from his hand, and there he veiled his power. So in these verses, we're dealing with a theophany, and that is essentially a theological term that refers to the physical appearance of a deity, right? So God seeming to physically come somewhere and physically do something of some sort, whether we're dealing with like Jesus on the Mountain of Transfiguration, or God's dealings with Abraham or Sodom and Gomorrah, these experiences where somewhat it seems as if God is, or God is referring to some type of physical visitation to us crazy people here on earth. And so the prophet is describing this visitation, that it's filled with splendor, it's filled with glory, it's filled with light, rays flashing from his hand, powerful, supernatural experience. Before him went pestilence, and plague followed at his heels. He stood and measured the earth. He looked and shook the nations. The eternal mountains were scattered, and the everlasting hills sank low. His were everlasting ways. Now here we are dealing with, essentially, we have this theophany because God is coming with judgment. Pestilence, before him went pestilence, and plague follows his heels. So he's not coming to bless anybody at this point. We're talking judgment and destruction. Why? Because we read in chapter 2. So the judgment is coming. The oppressors will be oppressed. I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction. The curtains of the land of Midian did tremble. Now, this particular verse, there's contention about who and what this refers to, whether it's Ethiopia, whether we're just dealing with the Midianites. However, beyond that contention, the tents of, we're saying, hey, where people dwell, where people live, this people group, the prophet sees them in affliction. He sees them in trouble. The place of safety, the place of comfort is about to be interrupted. Verse 8, was your wrath against the rivers, O Lord? Was your anger against the rivers, or your indignations against the sea when you rode on your horses on your chariot of salvation? You stripped the sheath from your bow, calling for many arrows. You split the earth with rivers. The mountains saw you and writhed. The raging waters swept on. The deep gave forth its voice. It stumbled its hands on high. So here we're seeing again this theme that God is coming in this form of judgment, this manifestation of God's presence, so to speak, is not because God is happy and he's, cheerful. Going back to this opening verse, the prophet praying because of what he saw, God in wrath, remember mercy. Because when God gets to the point that he's mad, as we see, he really, really, really gets mad. The patience of God, when that patience runs out, because he gives us chance after chance after chance after chance after chance. And so he's given, right, this prophecy essentially is that, right, he's given Babylon likely centuries of time to repent and to turn away. However, it's fallen on deaf ears, and so now we see imagery from warfare, from ancient warfare, right? So maybe if this was written today, we wouldn't be talking about horses, warrior riding on a horse and having a chariot and pulling sheaths out the bow. Maybe we would be talking about, F-22, God riding on an F-22 or God on a Black Hawk helicopter instead of pulling a sheath and a bow. It be a rifle, right? There is imagery of warfare, right? Of warfare here. And so the prophet again at the beginning prayed, okay, God, in your wrath, remember mercy. The sun and the moon stood in their place at the light of your arrows as they sped, the flash of your glittering spear. You marched through the earth in fury. You threshed nations in anger. So again, threshing, like a threshing floor, a place where maybe you are turning grapes into grape juice. That will be done on a threshing floor, and people are stomping and smushing, right, the fruit or what be. So we're dealing with the imagery of God marching, God stomping, God in this posture of anger. You went out for the salvation of your people, for the salvation of the anointed. You crushed the house of the wicked, laying him bare from thigh to neck. Selah. You pierced his arrows, the heads of his warriors who came like a whirlwind to scatter me, rejoicing as if to devour the people in secret. You trampled the sea with your horses, the surging of mighty waters. So we see there's more revelation. Why is God in this warrior-like stance? Because you're going out for the salvation of your people, for the salvation of your anointed. Remember in chapter 1 and 2, we discussed how the oppressor would be oppressed, right? So God's people would be oppressed, but God would come and deal with the oppressor. Because now, okay, my people, I let my hedge of protection, I let it go. What happens, happens, but now I'm stepping in. I'm stepping in a very warlike format. I'm stomping. I'm coming forth with aggression. I'm coming forth with anger because they're oppressing my people. You went out for the salvation of your people, for the salvation of your anointed. That's why God has come in such a posture. You have crushed the head of the house of the wicked, laying him bare from thigh to neck. You pierced his own arrows, the heads of his warriors. You came like a whirlwind to scatter me, rejoicing as if to devour the poor in secret. You trampled the sea with your horses, the surging mighty waters. Verse 16, very interesting. I hear and my body trembles. My lips quiver at the sound. Rottenness enters my bones. My legs tremble beneath me. Yet I will quietly wait for the day of trouble to come upon people who invade us. So here we have the prophets, um, right? So it's not like today where people say they hear from God and they're very disconnected and detached from whatever they are prophesying or supposedly seeing or saying from heaven. But Habakkuk is troubled at what he sees. He trembles at this word, these visions, these utterings in secret, these whispers that have come from the divine celestial throne room. He's in awe of what's been spoken. It says, my legs tremble beneath me, yet I will quietly wait for the day of trouble to come upon people who invade us. So essentially, in context, what has been prophesied in Habakkuk 1 and 2? That, hey, Israel sinned, has sinned, they're not following, they're not listening. The judgment for their sin will be oppression from a foreign adversary. In other words, an invader is going to come and run the show. They don't want me, I'm going to let them have another king run the show. Since they don't want me as king, an oppressor will be their king. But now, chapter 2, what was essentially the word of comfort for Habakkuk? That although the invader is going to come, the oppressor is going to come, the oppressor will be oppressed. The wicked will be halted. Those who held you back and blocked you from moving forward, they themselves will be blocked. The judgment that they're going to receive is coming. Though it tarry, though it seem to delay, right? Write that vision and make it plain, because the day of trouble is going to come for them. So Habakkuk, don't think I'm just picking on Israel and I'm just gonna do whatever. No, no, no. I'm going to be equal across the board. Their day is coming. The bully that bullied you, their day is ultimately coming. Yet I will quietly wait for the day of trouble to come upon people who invade us. Verse 17, though the fig tree should not blossom, nor be fruit on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food. The flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God, the Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like deer's, and he makes me tread on high places. To the choir with stringed instruments. Again, this should be behind some expressive music. So let's unpack these verses. Though the fig tree should not blossom, nor the fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive failed, and the fields yield no food. So let's connect this. What are we dealing with? We're dealing with lack of food, lack of resources. We're dealing with economic drought and depression. We're dealing with starvation, hunger, famine. Um, he's saying, I see clearly the judgment is coming to my people. The oppressor is going to come, and for some time, we're not going to have the things that we want or need. This would be the equivalent if he was prophesying today. He might say, Walmart Walmart shelves will be empty. There'll be no chicken breasts in the frozen aisles. There's going to be no ramen noodles on the shelves. There's not going to be any fruits or vegetables in the produce section. When you walk in Walmart, it's going to be empty. You might as well not get in line, because whatever is left, the line is going to be going out the door because there's not much. So you might as well just go home. It's not going to be anything available. And this particularly is important for these ancient societies because they're agrarian. In other words, right, people have to farm, hunt, gather in order to eat. Maybe where you and I are in our society, we don't have to do that directly. Only less than 5% of our population, at least in the United States, has to farm and all that stuff. So not only are you talking about here about lack of food, lack of resources, you're talking about trade and economic collapse. Okay, if I can't give you, if I don't have any olives, that's what I know how to make well, and I need to trade that to get another type of food or something else that my family needs. I don't have that capacity. I don't have that ability. So you can think modern. Him also saying, right, your currency is going to crumble. You're going to deal with hyperinflation. The value of your dollar is going to go crazy. So here we're dealing with agricultural and economic impacts. But he says, as a prophet, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God, the Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like deer's. He makes me tread on my high places. So, despite there being a word of judgment, despite there being a word very severe, very harsh, the prophet chooses to rejoice in the Lord. Take joy in the fact that his judgments are true, his judgments are solemn, his judgments are just, regardless of what we may think or feel or believe. At the end of the day, he knows what's best. So he has chosen to take joy in the God of his salvation and refuge, despite what he sees in the spirit coming. So he's gone through a litany of emotions throughout this, throughout this prophetic writing. He's ending with the joy of the Lord being his strength. Well, why does he need strength? Because he's troubled by what he saw, right? So he's deciding to rely on the joy of the Lord to be his strength, despite this very gruesome, very morbid, very horror-filled vision, right? He deals with joy, he deals with fear and trembling, he deals with discontentment, he deals with a variety of complex emotions in this conversation with God that he has over a period of time. And so he concludes with, despite what I see and I hear in the spirit, despite what I know my people are about to experience, and their children and their children's children will experience, I'm going to place my faith, my hope, my rest, my trust, my confidence in the Lord, and that will be my joy. I will praise him. Despite all of this, I will rejoice in the Lord, the God of my salvation. He is my strength. He is my shield. A lot of times we don't really want to give God praise. We don't want to give him honor because things happen in our lives that are uncomfortable. Things happen in our lives that we don't like, that we don't think are fair. But what we as humans perceive as fair is not a prerequisite to rejoice in God, accept his will, and be thankful. It doesn't mean we'll always feel good, because you can honor God, you can respect God as king, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what you think. So Jehovah, Yahweh, the Lord is my strength, right? At the end of the day, what does he do? He makes my feet as hinds feet. In other words, he makes my feet like deer's feet. Um, he makes my feet active. He makes my feet swift. He makes me limber and strong and quick. I'm moving, right? I'm moving. I'm moving forward. I'm not going to sit in my sadness. I'm not going to rest in my depression. I'm not going to stay in a low place, but I'm going to go to the high place in the city, which is the victorious place. I'm going to go to the victorious place and stand and tread there. So you may be dealing with something challenging. I encourage you to rejoice in the Lord, even though you have other emotions, right? It doesn't say that he was happy about this, about the um, food and produce being taken away. It doesn't say he was happy about that. It doesn't say he felt good about that. But we have this clause here, yet still. So you may be feeling a certain type of way, yet still rejoice in the Lord. It does not mean that that you don't acknowledge your feelings, but it means despite, I will still thank God, acknowledge him, honor him, and give him praise. I'm not going to run away just because I'm in a dark season. I'm not going to run from him because things don't look the way I think that they should look. I will still honor God. So this has been the book of Habakkuk, where we have seen that we are to present our full range of emotions, feelings, and thoughts to God and allow him to deal with them accordingly. It is okay to question. It's okay to wrestle. It is okay to wait on the Lord and get the answers that we need. The intimacy from asking questions provides opportunities for God to give us clarity. If this has helped you in any way, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And we will going to continue throughout our journey of the minor prophets. Be encouraged. I will see you next time. Love you. Peace.